Hello everybody. Alright, it is time for afternoon drinks. To add some visual dynamism, I am setting up as I broadcast. Because I'm all about visual dynamism these days. I mean, if you look yesterday, I was walking through a whole town in a different state. So, pretty visually dynamic. In fact, go back and check that one out. That was pretty cool. It was so fun to be back in Northfield for a few hours. Now I'm back, as you can see, in the basement. Almost canceled you guys by accident. That would have been no good. Alright. So, I believe you were promised a snack experiment. First of all, my drink today is Trader Joe's Ethiopian coffee. Brewed nice and strong, the way I like it. I've been trying, speaking of experiments, I've been trying another experiment where I'm just going to grind a whole bunch in advance because I have a little hand grinder, but while we were in the secret backup headquarters last week, turns out secret backup headquarters has a Keurig, and it kind of spoiled me. Like, I can just pop down and make myself a cup of coffee in like 20 seconds whenever I want one. And I still won't be able to quite do that because I boil the water manually and I grind the beans manually and stuff. But if I pre-grind all my beans, or many of my beans, and then put them in an airtight container, that'll expedite the process a little bit, and I can drink even more outlandishly ridiculous amounts of coffee. Why wouldn't I? So, the aforementioned snack experiment is, we don't quite have a good name for them. They're like snack cubes or high protein cubes, energy squares is a good one. So these are sort of more like a recipe template than a recipe. You basically take something sweet and sticky, like dried fruit, and something flavorful, and then something sort of grainy or seedy. You put them together in a food processor, grind them into a sort of paste. Sounds unappetizing, just sort of into a thick, textured substance. Flatten that out, cut it into squares, and Bob is your uncle. So this one is the one that Kristen designed this time around. Its main ingredients, I think, are cranberry or craisins rather, and what did she use? Oh, craisins and walnuts. I was just asking her about it. Craisins and walnuts, but then in a base of dates and chia seeds and flax seeds and wheat germ, and get all the good stuff. This one is Daphne's. This is all the dried fruits. So I think dried apricots and dates, and probably raisins and craisins, and then oatmeal, and again the various nuts and seeds, so that can be walnuts and flax seeds and chia seeds and wheat germ, really whatever you want. Hello! Alright, so snack experiment begins. So this is again, oh wait, and this one, key ingredient, cocoa powder. So this is Kristen's cranberry and walnut and seeds and flax and wheat germ, etc. A little on the dry side, nutty and delicious. High energy, you can tell it's like doing good things. This one's Daphne's. A little sweeter, a little wetter. Got that hint of chocolate. Delicious. Alright, enough watching me eat. Hello! Yeah, you should want chocolate, it's delicious. So when I made these, I made two kinds. I don't quite remember exactly what they were, but I think one of them was like chocolate and craisin and maybe ginger, like crystallized ginger. It was so good. And I made another one that was also so good, and it was kind of down a different vein that I've totally forgotten. So let's see. We are almost done with the brainstorming. Zen's mind drifted, even though he was trying hard to listen to the others. People talk about inspiration hitting, but for Zen it tackled. Sizzling excitement began trickling into his veins. He recognized the first moments of the familiar rush. I already know a couple families around here who live around here, said Summer, and they could know someone who needs a nanny. Or we could run a daycare here in the house. We could have the kids help in the garden. We could even make it a sort of homeschool. Hello, everybody. It's so good when people come. This is really fun. Now she was getting really excited. Zen's inspiration beat in time to hers, though it ran along another track. The garden full of people, paper lanterns, good tea, maybe good port in the beautiful old glasses in the china cabinet. Yes, she added, we could teach them how to think like real people and paint and make music. Music. Something classy, unusual. Subtle backbeats drifted through the garden in his mind. Jazz and electronica merged in a mellow perfection he'd never heard. And math, added Alex with a dry smile. Right, and history and good literature, continued Summer. And cooking, for sure. Cooking. People in the garden, sitting around the tables at dusk, animated discussions and perfectly polished old silverware. The best of everything, gourmet food. And philosophy, he said out loud. People searching for truth, real people with deep questions, clear thinking. They could learn from each other. Socrates, good listening, real listening. New relationships, permanent friends bound by more than gossip and football. Lives would change, it could spread. His heart ran like a rabbit, frantic and silent. This could be brilliant. Summer was grinning, alive, probably more vivid than he'd seen her in months. He felt like he could see into her soul and through those shining green eyes. In every cell she was a person, alive, beautiful, completely other, and deeply familiar. Really good idea, Summer, Alex told her. Zen could see every hair on his head, thousands of them in high definition and glorious, shining black detail. The idea had taken him over now. He tried taking slow, deep breaths. His fingers tingled with the power of the idea. His eyes flickered. He wrestled again with the familiar, terrifying struggle. The idea was boring a hole through his chest, pounding, burning, expanding. But if he just let it out, there was no chance he could make it understood to anyone. He clenched down his lungs, fighting to hold it in, trying to think. Anyone else? Ideas? Zen closed his eyes. He fought the idea down. Ideas had to be tamed before he let them out. They'd taught him that the hard way, over and over. He wrestled with his muscles and his lungs and his brain and his heartbeat, holding it down like a volleyball underwater. Keep it simple. He sucked in a deep, slow breath. It escaped again in quick, short bursts. A philosophical restaurant, he said, eyes still clenched as he fought to channel the raging torrent of the idea into a tiny trickle of words. Even with his eyes closed, he could feel his fingers slipping against each other. The darkness behind his eyelids felt like velvet. He fought to control his breath, back and forth in tiny gasps. He froze his heart like a statue, clenched his lungs. Slow, he commanded his body. Not now. They would be scared if they knew. They thought he was just brainstorming, just being Zen. He knew he had latitude for strange behavior, but it could only go so far. He clenched down into another long, calming breath, using the tricks he had taught himself in private years ago after the first time the ideas came, after he realized it would happen again. Interesting, said Alex. Tell me more. The invitation burned in him. Tell me everything. Tell me the stars and the wind and the mountains. His eyes flicked open and he could see the old rutted kitchen table carved by years of dinners where a family had sat right here, alive and eating plants that had grown from inside this planet that swirled through sparkling night in a cloud of glittering solar-powered machines crafted by minds who were alive. The whole world was filled with people who wanted truth, who wanted to know the real life of each person, the passions that filled the garden like paper lanterns. Invite people to the garden. He forced the words out like a smooth, thick paste under unbearable pressure. His eyes closed again. He barely breathed. He spoke with utmost care. Cook very good food. Teach people to really listen to each other. Ask good questions. Make friends for life. There. He felt the rush passing. In a moment he would be exhausted. His lungs released. He kept his eyes closed, his mind drifting in a calm, empty place. I like it, Alex said appreciatively, and Zen remained very still. A tiny grin spread on Summer's face. Zen was back, being Zen. A philosophical restaurant in the garden. Images drifted through her mind, people sitting on picnic blankets, surrounded by glorious, juicy, homegrown cucumbers and tomatoes and berries. Really good food, deep questions, conversations, spreading long into the night and moving indoors. Maybe even open mic nights or slumber parties or poetry readings. It was harder to say where the money would come from. It seemed against the spirit of the thing to charge entry. Maybe people could bring food to help cover costs. At any rate, it was a good idea. By the way, I'd love to hear where you guys are, what you're doing, if you're eating anything, what you're drinking, that sort of thing. So feel free to let me know in the comments. Alex turned to Sushi. Any brilliant ideas yet? Sushi pointed in turn to each of them, starting with herself. Paint, program, write, build, grow. That was concise, Alex replied. Yep, Sushi agreed. They eyed each other for a moment. Anything else? Asked Alex. Oh, yes, something else. I forgot to tell the rest of you. We got the guy to sign a thing that says we can buy the house if we get enough money before he tears it down next year. A thrill ran through Summer's arms. Buy the house? It was an incredible idea. Alex had told them all that the house was slated for demolition, but he'd done a good job of making that sound like an advantage. No worries about damage to the walls, or repainting rooms, or anything else they felt like, and a decisive boundary on the project. Figure out whether to start something permanent or go back to the real... Once the year was up, they could see how it had gone, talk it over, figure out whether to start something permanent or go back to the real world. But what if they could actually buy the house that they were about to transform? How much? She asked. $500,000, Sushi replied with a shrug. That includes the property out back too, with the little house on it. But he said it has to be both or nothing. Guess he's planning some new development, so, think big. Let me know if you come up with anything. She rose to leave. Not big, Zen said. Viral. We have to find something that will multiply, some kind of... Mouse! Squeaked Sushi. Zen's forehead wrinkled in confusion. No, he began. Then they all saw it. Mouse! Sushi repeated at an impressive decibel level. Hi, Flavia. She grabbed the nearest person, who happened to be Summer, and shook her. Get it! A little gray mouse paused in the middle of the floor and glanced around at them quizzically. Don't hurt him, cried Summer. Alex grabbed an empty glass flower jar as Otto leapt into the mouse's path with a nimbleness that surprised Summer. The mouse darted for the tiny space between the oven and the wall, but Otto was too quick for him. With a hearty laugh, he dove and slid his hand in front of the mouse. There is something you do not know, he declared. I am not left-handed. The mouse swerved and ran straight toward Alex, who deftly scooped him up in the flower jar. Yes! Shouted Otto in triumph as Zen let out a whoop. Call in a SWAT team! Shouted Sushi. Where's the emergency bazooka? Calm down, said Alex, turning the jar to get a better look at the mouse. After a few reflex attempts to get out of the jar, it seemed to realize its situation. It peered through the glass at Alex. He's so cute, Summer said. What are we going to call him? Call him? Squealed Sushi. How about cat food? Or maybe Ballast? Or Hurley, the projectile rodent? I'm thinking Cosmopolitan, said Alex. Cosmo for short. He looks like a seasoned man of the world. Cool, calm, sophisticated. Always good for a laugh when we're having martinis at the club. We're not keeping it, Sushi insisted. I don't want a beast in my kitchen. Allow me. Otto deftly took the jar from Alex. Don't get rid of him, Summer said, but Otto just gave Sushi a gallant little nod and quietly left the room. Grunted Sushi. Well, I'm glad at least one of you bumpkins has some sense. Alright, time for me to get back to work. Hope you guys had a great time today, and I look forward to seeing you tomorrow. Thanks for joining me, and have a great day.